Hi everyone! You probably haven't watched the videos from my 30-day trip in the United States, because well, nobody has. But this year I visited several cities, and much like all tourists in the world, I have opinions to share. With this video I aim to help you with suggestions on what to do when you run out of things to do after perusing the Things to Do in New York lists. I speak as a tourist and claim no further knowledge or experience other than the 8 days I spent in New York in the spring of 2024. After all these caveats, and thank you for sticking around for so long, here are my 3 non-touristy suggestions for things to do in New York as chosen by a tourist. My first suggestion is Roosevelt Island. This small island is one of the few islands in New York that is easy to access and can be walked from top to bottom in less than half a day. And it very much has the shape of what you think of when you think of an island. And none of these nonsense shapes. It's on the East River, nested between Manhattan and Long Island. In fact, when you look at Manhattan from Long Island, it's usually in the way. But that means that it has great views of both, especially Manhattan, as it is about the right distance to allow for a good appreciation of its skyline, but not too close to be overwhelmed by it. The island has a very interesting story, which I will not get into at the moment, but it's worth looking into if you like fun facts. The coolest thing about it is that you can access it via the Roosevelt Island tramway, which is the cheapest equivalent I can think of to a helicopter ride in New York. The tram is part of the MTA, which means that it costs the equivalent of a single ride on the metro. You can also simply take the metro to the island, but honestly it's great fun to take the tram and it only lasts about 3.5 minutes. Once you're on the island, there are a few parks and landmarks to visit. Starting from top to bottom, the northern part of the island has the requisite lighthouse, which is now surrounded by a lovely artwork by artist Amanda Matthews, dedicated to Nellie Bly. Take a moment to read about this formidable journalist and also have some fun taking photos of the murals. And don't forget those little guys on the northwest side bank. I would say that the west side, aka the side that's facing Manhattan, has more interesting views compared to the east side. When I visited in springtime, the cherry trees were in bloom, and that was a great sight and definitely insta-worthy. At the bottom of the island, you can see the extremely gothic-looking smallpox hospital ruin, taken straight out of an Edgar Allan Poe story. And further down the south is Roosevelt Park, a fairly pleasant park area. In the middle of the island is this seemingly random farmhouse, which is known as the Blackwell House, which turns out to have belonged to the family that used to own the island. It's looking pretty good for a gentleman over 200 years old. Also in the middle of the island is the campus of Cornell Tech, and a quite lovely park, excellently placed for picnics with great views. I think alternatively there's a handful of restaurants on the island, but I don't have an opinion on them. It is well worth a visit for some nice walks in the proximity of Manhattan, but away from all the noise. Speaking of nice walks, my second recommendation is the High Line, a terrific walk with a lot of fans. It was randomly recommended to me by an Australian businessman on the Yards coach to Yosemite among other fans. The High Line is a park that was designed on the tracks of a disused part of the West Side Freight Line, starting, well I guess depending where you stand, from just behind the Moynihan train station. It is a lovely walk that not only gives you the chance to walk among the buildings from a height, but also to experience a blending of nature and concrete in the most aesthetically pleasing way. It has some pretty interesting works of art on the way. As far as I understand, the art installations are not permanent, so you're likely to see different pieces depending on when you go. For example, there's apparently a dinosaur on display currently. On the west end of the walk, you can see across Hudson to New Jersey, and I guess the rest of America. There's also the Vessel nearby, which is, if nothing else, very shiny. The walk is quite popular, but not terribly busy. I walked it on a Sunday afternoon and I was definitely not overwhelmed by the amount of people there. It's about 2.5 kilometers or 1.5 miles, and you can definitely make a very leisurely afternoon of it, combining it with nearby parks and museums such as the Hudson River Park or the Whitney Museum of American Art. It is also close to the Chelsea Market, which has a lot of restaurants and shops, and the General Meatpacking District also has a lot of restaurants to choose from, and it's a very buzzy place anyway. The third place I'm going to suggest is on Long Island, and it is another park. Or actually a park and a pier. If you find yourself in Long Island City, either because you have found affordable accommodation nearby or on your way to or from Queens, then it's definitely worth making a stop at Hunters Point and Gantry Plaza. The LAC Pier in Hunters Point has a fine view of Manhattan, with Roosevelt Island getting a little bit on the way. It is usually frequented by people on their lunch break / fishermen. Now I don't know if I would eat anything that came out of the East River, but thankfully you don't have to, you can just enjoy the view. It is specifically pretty around the golden hour, but I would argue that it has great Midtown Manhattan views throughout the day. You can then walk to Gantry Plaza for more views and look at the Pepsi Cola sign, which is, whether you like it or not, a recognizable New York landmark. You unfortunately cannot walk by the river between the pier and Gantry Plaza, and you have to get back on the street, but there's some cool graffitis on the way and it's only a few minute walk. After that, the park extends on the coastline for about a kilometer, very pleasant and very well kept, with opportunities for sitting and taking in the views. The general Long Island City area appears to be, well, I guess gentrify is not the right word because it looked like there were just warehouses before, but definitely up and coming with interesting restaurants and bars in the surrounding area, so you can definitely explore the scene a bit. Since I have already taken you to Long Island City, I have a bonus fourth recommendation. If you're looking for a quick art fix, there's MoMA PS1 in the area, a smallish offshoot of the gargantuan MoMA that's in central Manhattan. Like its older sibling, it focuses on modern art, but it is a lot more manageable. It usually has 3 to 4 exhibitions on, each dedicated to a single artist, and it also has a cute bookshop cafe. The ticket is $10, but it's free if you've been to MoMA in the previous fortnight. That's all from me. I hope you found that useful or that I gave you some ideas. I will be uploading more videos like that in the future, so if you'd like to watch them, why not subscribe and be notified every time there's a new video. Thanks for watching, have a nice day!